we're spending a lot of time on requirements, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it seems like it must be important then, right? Either that or else you have an evil cruel professor who just wants to beat you over the head with requirements. Well, so here's the concept. We're going to assume, of course, that you get the programming part down, that you learn how to program in Python, right? We assume that you have the ability to do that. Great. So you're going to have the ability to crank out code. Fantastic. That's wonderful. But what are you actually going to code? What people tell me to code, right? You assume somebody's going to show up and just hand you something that says code this, right? It doesn't always work that way. What they're really going to do is they're going to give you a bunch of requirements. Okay, well, that's sort of like a problem in a book, right? Not quite. It's not nearly that well formed, generally, right? And if somebody's just going to show up and hand you some requirements, you best be able to ask some questions about those requirements. If you're just grabbing requirements and coding them up, congratulations, you're probably cranking out garbage, right? Because your assumptions about what they want you to do may be completely different from what they really, really want you to do. And that's why we're spending so much time talking about requirements, so that you become smarter when you bump into requirements. All right. So we ended our discussion last time with a little sticky problem, right? So you've done everything correctly. You collected the requirements, you estimated the requirements. Remember we did the whole planning poker sort of stuff. You've come up with something, you got consensus, everybody sort of agrees on how much each one of these, user stories is going to take. Great, you did them all perfectly, and you added them up, and your magic number was what, 135 days. And you're comfortable with that. You think that that's actually a pretty accurate, give me 135 days and I can crank this software out. Cool, you go talk to the customer, you say, good news, I figured out how long this is going to take to make 135 days, and the customer said, what? I need it in 90. You got any magic up your sleeve? How are you going to turn 135 into 90?
Cut features.
You can cut features, but I want it all in 90 days. You can, yeah, more people, that sounds like an excellent. In fact, if I get 2,000 people working on it, I should be able to have it done in a day, right?
Do it.
Or just do it. We call that an all-nighter, right? Yeah. Well, here's the code, so does it work? I don't know. And I'm too tired to talk about it, so just take it and we'll talk later. No. All possible solutions. I don't have any problems with those. The question is, what's the right way to do it? Let's take these. All right, so these are all the requirements that you guys have, right? So remember, this was our, what was this? This was our shack on a pond where we wanted to build a website so people would come to us, right? So we had all these different sort of requirements. Pay with Visa, PayPal, we wanted to have it so people online could book the packages, arrange travel, book a room, book packages, order a DVD, review their stay online. I had a great time when we were shacking a pond. Book a boat tour, order room service, choose your view, and of course be surprising. All of a sudden we think it's going to be super popular, so we want to make it so that 3,000 people can come and visit us, come and visit our website all at the same time. So this is what we're dealing with. These are the requirements that we have, and these are the things that came out to be a number that was too large for our customer, right? So which one of these should we do? Which ones of these are the most important? So we think book a room is important, right? We think pay with Visa, MasterCard, PayPal is an important one. Anything else? And which one of these is most important? If I had to come up with the number one most important requirement, which one would it be? We think book a room is number one most important, right? Yeah, that's cool. What do we think number two is? Pay. Hey, you can book all you want, but you can get some cash out of this. Do we have a number three somewhere here?
We got 2 book packages.
I packages, yeah, I mean I gotta do rooms, right? Packages is a little bit fancier. It's like a room plus something.
Put it down twice.
I
2
do.
days.
And 2 different estimates. Who knows what's going on there? Regular packages and fancy packages, apparently. All right, well, is that number 3? One of those number 3? Or what would our number 3?
Actually, maybe choose the view.
Choose the view. It could be an important one, right? Hey, if I want to get you to book a room, maybe you're only going to book if you can choose the view, right? Give me a credit view, I'm not going to book my room. That seems as good as anything else. There's the 3,000 concurrent users.
I was about to say that.
That seems like that might be sort of a report. Where is that going to work? 1, 2, 3, 4, where? Where would we pick that one?
Probably.
Think 3? So get this stuff sort of worked out and then worry about it.
I mean, if your website goes down, you're going to have 0 customers.
That is true. And so that's sort of a critical thing. So we sort of came up with our 1, 2, 3, right? Based on sort of the limited information that we actually have. Well, fantastic. Too bad you did it wrong. Okay? And you did it wrong because you didn't talk to your customer, right? What are you doing prioritizing the user stories? Who put you in charge? You're not. You never are. You're just the developer, okay? Ultimately, whenever you start to prioritize features, you need to get out of doing that task, because it's not your task. I'm sure you can do a good one. You're bright, you're smart, you know what's going on. I have no problems with that. But really, this is not something you want to do, because ultimately, when you prioritize features, it probably means you're going to work on some stuff and you're not going to work on some stuff, right? And who do you want to own that decision? You or the customer? You do not want to own that, right? Because when the software shows up and it doesn't do everything the customer had originally hoped it was going to be, what are they going to do? They're going to blame somebody, right? And what do you really want them to do? Blame themselves, right? Or at least take ownership for it, right? If you prioritize it, if you say, I took a look at your requirements and I feel that these are the most important, so these are the ones that my team worked on, the customer's going to say, you're wrong. It turns out booking a package was the most important thing, because that's where I make my money. Booking a room, yeah, I make some money on that, but really, if I can sell stuff in terms of a package, both the fancy package and the not so fancy package, that's where I really make my cash. You should have made that your top priority. At which point in time you got egg on your face. You're like, oh, well now I know. Thanks, I appreciate it, right? Too late, the software's out. Obviously that feature won't be implemented until you get a chance to implement it. And the customer's sort of screwed at that point in time, right? So really, it's got to be the customer who prioritizes the features. That's the most important thing. You, on the other hand, have to help your customer prioritize the features. Remember, we talked about user stories, and our user stories big or small? They're relatively small, right? We said no more than what about 3 sentences per story? And if we're doing a project of any real size, are we going to have a few user stories or a whole bunch? We're going to have a whole bunch. And what you really want your customer to do is to prioritize the user stories. You don't want them to say, oh, this gigantic feature is what I need, and this gigantic feature I can wait on. You really want them to narrow it down to specific user stories, because ultimately, when you're implementing the code, you're going to be operating off of user stories. So if you can get your customer to prioritize user stories, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So, it's their job to do this. What you need to do is write down your user stories and then spread them out for your customer. And say, hey, here's everything I'm planning on doing. I need your help in sorting these and prioritizing these and figuring out which one of these I need to work on. Now, if it's a really big project, what you probably want to do is take your story cards and break them up into groups. This is the user interface, this is the back-end interfaces, maybe this is the report generating, group them like that, and say in these different areas, instead of taking a look at 500 cards, instead let's take a look at groups of 100 cards or 50 cards or something like that, and just have you sort it up in that particular area. If you have a customer select a list of the features that are most important to them, who's going to own that list? Them, right? Ultimately, they will be the ones who decide what goes into the software. It's not you. It's not your job to do it. Remember, they're They're paying you, so you need to have them tell you what you want to do so they do actually pay you, right? Okay, based on this, you then select a list of features that will be delivered in the Milestone 1.0 version of the software. Milestone 1.0 version of the software is the very first version of the software that you're going to deliver to the customer. And what makes it such a special version of the software is that when you deliver the Milestone 1.0 version of the software to the customer, you expect them to pay. Gotcha? Remember, on this sort of going back and iterative and agile sort of development sort of stuff, you do a little bit of the software and you show it to them and get their feedback. Remember that stuff that we talked about? And they'd say yes or no, and then you go back to do some more changes, you come back and present some more code to them. Great, fabulous, wonderful. Were they paying you for any of that? No. But Milestone 1.0 is all of the functionality that you're planning on doing for them. And when you present it to them, you're expecting them to cut you a check to pay you for the work that you did. So it's a fairly big deal, okay? So you want to do it correctly. So what's going to be in this Milestone 1.0 version of your software? Okay? It's going to be the first major release of software to the customer, all of it. Not just bits and pieces, but you're going to take all the stuff that you've done and all the stuff that you've been showing to them, and you're going to present it to the customer and say, hey, here you go. You want to get paid for it. What you need to do is you need to explain to the customer what can be done in the available time. Remember, they've prioritized these user stories. You've gone through and you've picked them out and you've taken a look at them. And you've said, okay, great, based on your selections, here's what's going to show up in that first version of the software, right? You need to deliver what's needed, what's most important to the customer. You know, you need to help your customer out here. If they're prioritizing certain things, you're going to get a feel for what's most important. Your packages, packages, packages. I sell packages, right? You know, if I'm getting that drumbeat from my customer, then that's what I need to make sure my software does. Don't worry about how long this is all going to take. Remember, for each one of our stories, we probably have an estimate for it. You might be going, you know, he's basically asking me to do 120 hours of work and 120 days of work, and he wants it in 90 days. That's going to cause you a problem. Don't worry about that right now, okay? Just take what your customer's telling you as far as what their priorities are and gather them. That's perfectly okay. We'll worry about making everything work out a little bit later on. Great, so now your customers prioritize the user stories, and the reason they've done that is because what they originally asked for, to do all this stuff, didn't fit. They had asked you to do too much in the time that was available. So now they've gone through and prioritized everything. That's fantastic. Okay? You're going to organize user stories in priority order, select the stories that are most important to them, collect them all the user stories needs to develop, call this milestone 1.0. Okay, that's pretty much the same thing we just talked about. Sanity check. So now you've got all these user stories. Great, now what are we going to do, right? Okay. So now you know what your customer wants. They've pretty clearly communicated it to you. You know, yeah, they want to have everything, but here's the order in which I want to have it. You need to add together all the user story estimates for milestone 1.0. And keep your fingers crossed that it comes out to be 90 days. Please, please, please. But it never will, but please, okay. Okay? Does the total estimate seem to be reasonable to accomplish within the available time? Probably not. You're probably going to be still too long. And that's just the way the world works, right? Customer wants it in 90 days. You were at 135. You know, maybe you're now at 115. We're making progress. We're not where we need to be, but we're making progress, right? Okay. So we still have too much to do. Got a problem. What should you do if you have 100 days of effort and your customer wants the software in 30 days? Just leave the country at that point. But you get the gist of it. If there's a disconnect, you've got a problem. So now this is when we start talking about cutting out functionality. Okay? Your customer has prioritized the user stories. If you did it correctly, they said this is the top priority, and then this is the lowest priority from my customer vantage point. Okay, that's cool. But it means you can start to trim from the bottom up. Okay, if the customer said, this is something I want, but it's a lower priority, then that's the type of functionality you start to cut. You want to keep your development momentum going by shipping a milestone build as soon as possible. Look, when you can't quite fit everything into the 90 days, what happens is you start thinking, well, how about if I extend my delivery schedule? Instead of 90 days, I do it in, what can I deliver in 95 days or in 100 days or something like that? You start stretching out your development schedule. You really don't want to do that because you're going to kill your development team if you do that, right? The longer you develop something, the slower things start to go and everybody's productivity just starts to go down again. You want to focus on delivering just a working version of the software, nothing else. Nothing else means all the bells and whistles. I just want to get the website up for my shack in the middle of the pond. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to have flash graphics. It doesn't have to have fancy HTML5 stuff in it. All it needs to be is a freaking website that allows people to order, book stuff, and pay stuff. End of story. I'm good to go. That's good enough for my milestone 1.0 version, right? Remember, not all user stories are created equal. Some are much more important than the other ones. And if you're having problems getting everything to fit, because the customer wants you to do too much in too little time, then what you do is you start to focus on the stuff that's absolutely critical, and you can drop the other stuff. And you're able to do that now because you had your customer prioritize the user stories, so you can trim the stuff off the bottom of the customer's list. So when we talked about how to solve our little problem of not being able to get our software done in time, one of the suggestions was add people. All right, so we're talking about adding software developers to our team. That seems like a good solution. Okay, now, but let's talk about what happens when you add a person to your team. You got a team of 5, and you bring somebody in, you're going to make a team of 6. Every new person who comes in has to figure out what's going on. They gotta come up to speed, and that will actually take a while. They also have to understand the software. So what are we actually working on? You know, I was just over here working on this other project, and now I'm working on this one. So I gotta get my head around what's actually going on. They need to understand the technical decisions that you've already made. Remember, you're making a website to allow people to come online and order basically book rooms, book packages, and pay for it online. They may have been working on, you know, the dashboard system for a brand new electric car, and now they have to come over and shift their way of thinking because you're doing a completely different type of project. They need to understand how everything fits together. Remember, they're going to be working on one piece of the software. Great, that's fantastic. But the software is much larger than whatever they're working on. So that means their piece of software has to talk to all the other pieces of software. Great. How is it going to exchange information? What variables are you using? What databases are you using? What kind of information is flowing between them? You're going to have to explain that to them. And they're not going to be 100% productive. You can't just drop another person into a software team and then go, wow, we just doubled our ability to create software. It's going to take them some time to come up to speed. Okay? We'd also talked a while ago about the fact that the more people that you add to a software team, the more challenging your communication task comes. Everybody on a software team has to talk to everybody else. The larger the team is, that's more people for them to talk to. Okay, and that takes more time, that's more emails, that's more exchanges. Every meeting you have now has more people, and if you're going to do a round-robin thing where everyone gets to speak on what's going on in their life, suddenly now there's more people who have to speak, so you're going to spend more time in that meeting. More time in the meeting means there's less time for you to spend developing your software. Small teams are good, big teams are bad. If you're adding more people, you're going to have a bigger team, and that's not going to be a good thing whatsoever. There's a diminishing return thing. So, you know, adding people can be a good thing. I'm not disparaging it completely. I'm saying adding too many people is a bad thing. And if you think you can cure all your problems by adding more people, that's not going to happen. Small teams are good. You can always add more people. After a certain point, just doesn't, and actually really it starts to drop off after a while. Performance starts to max out. Large teams require more communication. We talked about that. And adding more members will have less of an impact on your ability to actually deliver your software. There's a point beyond which adding more members is actually going to harm you more than it's going to help you. Because you got the additional communication, you got the first getting the person up to speed, the person's not going to be productive for a while. And remember, it's the other people in the team that have to spend some time out of their day to get that person up to speed as to what's going on. Well, if they're doing that, which is good news, means they're not actually developing your software. So the whole thing sort of slows down every time you add something. So yeah, adding people can be a good thing, but adding too many people is really, really bad. Your goal, a reasonable milestone 1.0. So how are you going to actually do this? What? You know, if it's not fitting, you're going to have to do something. Adding people? All right, that sounds like a good idea. Reprioritizing the user stories with the customer? That sounds like a good thing too. So these are two very practical things that you can do when you're stuck in the situation where what the customer's asking for is too much given the schedule they've given you. If they need to have it in 90 days and you're sitting on top of 115 days worth of effort, add some people to your team, not too many, okay? And then sit down with the customer and have another talk with them and say, listen, I'm going to have to drop some of your user stories so that I can deliver it to you in 90 days. Okay? Hey, the world is filled with unreasonable customers, but look, if they really want the software, they're going to work with you on this. Make sense? Okay. So, let's take a look and see what we got going on here. So we'll go back to our requirements, our user stories that we have. Well, let's go ahead and prioritize these, shall we? You're bright, you're smart. We're going to play a customer here for a minute. So we got pay, pay. And what we want to do is we want to prioritize. Here's our priority key. If we give it a 10, we're saying it's one of the most important. If we're giving it a 50, we're going to say it's the least important, and we can go anywhere in between that. So our pay, where are we going to rank that?
10.
We're going to say that's a 10. Are we comfortable with that? All right. We're going to say pay is a 10. So next is book packages. Where are we on that one? Is it a 10? Is it a 20? Is it a 50? I hear a 30.
25.
What's that?
25.
30.5?
No, 25.
25. So I hear 25. So you're saying it's a little bit more important than 30. Am I hearing anything else?
15.
10, 20, 30, 40, 50. We're going to keep it at increments of 10.
Oh.
Stop with the 15. Although you do have the ability, obviously, to come up with 15 or 25 if you find something that truly is in between something. But for now, 10, 20, 30, 40. So I got a 30.
Yeah, we'll stick with 30.
Okay, so we'll go with 30. Peer pressure is powerful in this room. Okay, arranged travel. That's so people can get to my shack in the middle of the pond. How important is that as far as a feature?
50 because they can go to other places to get to your pond.
Get in your car and drive, right? Or do something else. Hey, people, use orbits or something like that every day. They don't need anything special from me. So, okay, so we're putting it as 50. So I say 10, now you're putting it all the way up to the top. What's up with that?
Good. I'm fancy. I want them to drive me there.
Well, this is, I understand this is, maybe there's a car involved, right? I guess we haven't been really clear on that. Is this just an airplane, or is this a driver at the airport, or what the heck is it? We're not clear on that one. So we got a 50 and a 10. What else am I hearing in the room? 50, I'm hearing a 50, a 40. What are we transiting? Where are we transiting? Where are we going? 40. All right. So we'll sort of not quite split the difference, but we'll put it at about 40. So I hear you. There's no wrong answer on any of this stuff. Book a room. So book a room. What should we put that at? What? 20. So I got a 20.
10.
A 10. All right. The top. All right. So you're saying it's super important. 10. So I'm getting another 10. 10. All right. So overall, it looks like we're getting pretty much about a 10 on that one. Book packages. We already got that one. Boat tour. Dan. Big Pete in his boat, not happy about that one. How about DVD? Another 50? All right. Review stay?
I'd say 30.
30.
Yeah, 30.
So I'm hearing 30. Are we comfortable with 30 on that one? Doing 30, 30, 30? Okay.
30.
Order room service. Delicious, tasty food brought to the room. Maybe you can do it before you show up. 40, 40. Okay, because you think people can live without that? Okay.
Well, they can live it up.
Bring a fishing pole.
I'm sorry, what did we say that was? That's a 40, right?
40.
40. Choose view.
I already booked 10.
So I'm hearing a 20 for the view thing.
Yeah.
We all, okay, so it's important, but it's not the most, okay.
Single room shack.
Hey, it's a
4 views,
a
bro.
You can choose the west
luxury
side of the
getaway.
house. Choose the right side of the house.
Yeah,
the east.
Beautiful.
The
all
east
of
and the
them
east.
have-
That is true. All right, 3,000. Ability to support 3,000 concurrent users on our website.
That's all.
So I'm hearing 20, 10, 20,
I would say 10.
10,
Well,
30.
Right now.
All right, split the difference, going 20 on that one. All right. So what do we find out here? Book a room and pay seem to be the most important in your opinion. The view in 3,000 sort of coming in second place. Booking a package we decided was sort of the third place. After that, and also the review. Arranging travel, and then the least important was boat tour, DVD. I think that was it. All right. So yes.
Is there to specify that the package is super important though?
No, you heard me say that. But I was just running my mouth. Who knows? Maybe it is, right? We don't have any specific information from the customer, right? All right. Iterations. All right, so now what we got to do is take these and fit these in here. Okay, so how long is an iteration?
20 days.
Roughly 20 days, right? Okay, we're sort of cool with that. So maybe what we need to do is go back and do a little scribbling here. So this one's 10 packages, 15 days. Travel is 5. Boat tour is 5. DVD is 5. Stay is 10. Room service is 20. View is 15. Our last one is 20 and 3,000. All right. We got that, and now we know what our estimates are. Okay, now we want to do the iteration. So we've got basically 20 days. But how many developers do I have? 2. So how many development days can I do per iteration? You got it. Okay. So given that, what should we work into our iteration example number 1?
Pay and book a room first.
So we think,
The two things.
so these, and where's book room? Right here?
Down.
Sorry,
41.
right here, right?
Yes.
So we think these are iteration 1, correct? So maybe we should keep, so where are we here? So we're what, 10 and we're 10, right?
Put it on the slide.
Here, we do 1. So 10 plus 10. All right, so we're up to 20, right?
Yeah.
We're halfway there. Sir?
The 3,000, since it's priority at 20 and it's gonna take 20.
Yeah, that would sort of finish it off, wouldn't it? That would sort of, what's our other choice? Room service, which is also at 20.
No,
But
no,
it's-
the other thing that we.
You're absolutely correct, I'm sorry, I'm getting my, that's
Yeah, we don't
my
have-
priorities confused. All right, so we have a suggestion that we do 3,000 as the last part of our iteration 1. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
So, and that'd be plus 20, so that is going to be 40. Okay, cool. So iteration number 2. Here, maybe I should do this. Done. Done. Okay. So what are we going to put in iteration number 2? What's your recommendation?
Follow the view.
The view.
It is in the next rated thing.
It is a 15, okay, so 15, 15, and we'll put 2. Okay, so we've used up 15 of our 40, now where we're at. What goes into number 2, iteration number 2? The book package. This one here? And so that's gonna be, what, 15?
The review is 10 days, so.
So you're gonna say review right here?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what, 10 days? That's, okay, so that's 40. All right, so what do we got for number 3? Iteration number 3.
Yeah, but everything.
No,
else
yeah,
is
everything else.
5.
So what do we got? We
Yeah,
got
yeah,
40, 50, and number 40.
We can get everything else. Yeah, we get everything else in
Yeah.
45 days.
The priority not to.
So you're saying to put everything else in 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, because room service is 20 days.
And the
Uh-huh.
funeral takes 35.
And then the other.
So that would be 5.
15, that's.
5. You're saying this one here. That'd be another 5. And then room service. That'd be 20, right?
Arrange travel.
Is there anything else? Oh, wait, up here?
That's 5.
That's another 5. And what do we got there? 5, 10, 15, and 20, and so what, 35? Look at that! Did it work out?
Yeah.
Jeez, this software development stuff's hard. And there's no software! All right, so let's see, what was the problem that we bumped into? We had a project that, having done our best job to do estimates, turned out to be too long. It was going to require too much time. So then we turned around, we went back to our customer, and we said, hey, look, we got a problem. We took all of our user stories, presented them to our customer, and asked our customer to prioritize them. The customer did that. We said, fantastic. And then we went back and took a look, and we added up all of his high priority user stories, and we still had a problem, because it was still too big, right? So at that point in time, we had to step in and work with the customer and do some prioritization, maybe do some dropping and stuff like that. Cool, we finally got it down to something that sort of fit. And so we were pretty pleased with that. So then we had to figure out how are we gonna pack all of this stuff into actually our real development schedule. We're gonna do our 20-day iterations. We broke it up into 3 of them. So we took a look at everything we had to do, and we took into account the priorities that the customer had given us, and also the estimate that we had come up with as to how big each one of these was, and then we packed them in to the iterations. There you go now. You actually have a pretty legit software development schedule now that seems reasonable, right? You're working on the high priority user stories for the customer. This is going to be most important for them. You're comfortable that your estimates are pretty accurate on this sort of stuff. And you think in the first iteration, you'll be able to produce the most important user stories, and the second one, the next ones, and so on and so on. And by the time you're done with iteration 3, potentially you'll have milestone 1.0 version of your software ready to go present to your customer that will have the most important functionality that they're looking for from this website. Truckload of work to get here, but it seems like you're actually on the right path, right? Cool. Well, seems like we spent our time well. All right, so what did we do today? We helped our customers prioritize their user stories, basically get their acts together, right? We worked on creating a milestone 1.0 version of our software. We couldn't do it all, so we had to trim it down and get it so it could fit. And we talked about adding more people. It's valuable, there's no question about that whatsoever. However, there's a limit to what adding more people is going to do for your project in terms of good things. Yes, sir?
In industry, like, wouldn't you not really just be adding people in the middle of projects? Like,
You would desperately try not to.
yeah.
Now, here's another thing. So you asked a very good question. So in industry, okay, before I start a project, guess what I have to do? I have to estimate the cost of the project to the company, okay? And the reason I do that is because then the company goes, do we really want to spend money on this? Remember, if I'm a company, I can spend money on your project, or I can spend money on his project, and I have to make a decision. Assuming that I decide to spend money on your project, I've allocated you a certain amount of cash. Now, if you're going to be adding people, it's going to cost more. So you just changed your budget. Stuff happens, okay, that's all cool. But I'm not terribly happy about that, right? Because you and I had a talk before your project started, and you told me it was going to cost $1 million. Now you're coming back and telling me it's going to cost $1.5 million. And I'm like, what happened, right? Yeah, you might be able to get the additional $500,000 out of me, okay? But we're going to have a talk, because I don't like surprises, and you've just surprised me.
I just feel like trying to add something in the middle of the project, like, before you start a project, yeah, that seems like the best thing to do it. But in the middle of the project, that's just gonna slow it.
But it is done,
Yeah.
right? And actually, we get done when managers panic. What's happening? We're behind. Well, what do you need? More people? Okay, boom, here you go. Great. Now we're really gonna be behind. So you know, different people are gonna make different decisions. So you will drop people in. All right, next time, what are we gonna do? We're gonna do project planning. We're gonna do priorities. We're gonna do something mysteriously called velocity. Sound like a fair deal? What's that?
You would say that.
I have. This is what we call building up excitement, okay? So I'm teasing you. Eventually we'll get to it. I mean, I can't guarantee next time, but it's looking better that next time we'll actually do that. But I am so thrilled that you remember. That's warms my heart.
The last 3 presentations on this slide.
I think they did. I think they did. So when it finally happens, it'll be just like Christmas morning, won't it?
Yeah.
I'm excited. Fantastic. All right. Go away for 15 minutes, come back, and we will talk about some Python. So I would like to see you back here at 9 o'clock.